Good morning. Welcome to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Monday, May 6, 2024. It's 10 after 5 in the morning, and I have no business being awake, but I am awake. So I woke up, but I feel pretty rested, so I thought I'd jump out of bed, take a shower, wet hair as you can see, cup of coffee, and a little bit of a technology adventure first thing in the morning, of course, because on this trip to Vietnam, where I am right now, by the way, that's where I am. I'm in Ho Chi Minh City, staying at the Adenia Hotel in District 1 of Ho Chi Minh City, otherwise known as Saigon. I got here, I guess, 2 days ago. I've basically had 1 day in Vietnam. That was yesterday. So this is actually my second morning waking up in Vietnam. So things are still pretty fresh in my mind, and I wanted to record a few thoughts while things were fresh. In fact, I jumped out of bed this morning, not because I was going to record this video, but because, I just wanted to sit down on the computer and start editing some video. But then as soon as I started doing that, I thought, while I have a cup of coffee going, let's record a few thoughts. But for this trip, I didn't bring along my Olympus camera. And one advantage to my Olympus camera is that I do have a bit of a zoom lens on it. So I can mount the camera at the far end of the bed and then zoom in on me using the telephoto or the zoom lens. For this trip, I only have the GoPro. So the only thing I can do is put the GoPro on a little tripod right on the bed right in front of me. So it's right here. It's so close to my face. I'm not quite accustomed to that. And my main tripod broke just as I was leaving from Kuala Lumpur. I was just packing up, and I barely touched the thing with a finger, and the top part of it just snapped right off, the little GoPro fingers. Two of them eventually just broke right off, so I got rid of it, and I don't have my larger tripod. I just have this tiny hand grip, and it only comes down to like right here in terms of height. So anyway, I'm just saying that this feels like a very awkward setting because I have this tiny hand grip mounted on tiny tripod legs, and it's every time I move on the bed, it's rocking and rolling, and it's like right in front of my face, and it's lower down. So for me to look at the lens instead of looking forward naturally, this is just me looking forward. Now I have to look downward towards the lens of the GoPro. But I am setting it up with my smartphone, so I'm controlling the camera from the GoPro Quick app. And I had some success with that when I tried out. This is the GoPro Hero 12 that I'm using, and I had some success with that. But I remember the first experiment, I was able to zoom in. So I was able to put the camera farther away, and I had a zoom feature on the screen. But right now, I can't find it. So the only way I can actually get close to me is to put the camera right in front of me, which makes everything a little bit awkward. So that is the awkwardness going on this morning. So as I said, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. I went to bed pretty early last night because I was super tired. After I flew in, of course I was tired when I landed here. The day went pretty smoothly. I'll talk about that day in a minute. But at the same time, it was a day of travel, going through 2 airports, arriving in a brand new city, navigating customs, immigration on both ends. It's tiring. So by the time I arrived here, I was pretty tired, difficult to sleep. You got all the excitement of arrival going on in your head. And then yesterday I had a relatively full day, woke up early, went out, did a few things. And then by the time the evening came around, I was done. Thinking back now, I should have gone out again because it was a Sunday night. And I guess Sunday nights, weekend nights, things are busier. There's a very famous walking street nearby here. I saw it yesterday, and I kind of made a mental note that, when it's fully dark, I should head back out there. But by the time nighttime came, I was exhausted. I couldn't go out, so I simply went to bed. Had a couple of cans of beer, which was interesting. I haven't had beer since forever. Beer is not a common thing to drink in Malaysia or in Sumatra, both being majority Islamic countries, majority Muslim countries. And beer is very expensive, and buying beer always feels weird because you go into a 7-Eleven in Kuala Lumpur, for example, and everything is locked up and it's got a schedule on it. You can only buy beer from this hour to that hour. You sort of feel like you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing by buying a can of beer. So I just never got around to it. I'm not a big drinker anyway. It's not like I hardly ever thought about it. It was only when I went into 7-Eleven, I'm in there to buy a can of Coke or a carton of milk, and while I'm scanning the refrigerator, I would see the beer section. It's like, oh yeah, beer. But of course, it was always the wrong time. Whenever I was in there, it was always, oh, you can't buy beer at this time. And it was, as I said, it's not a big deal to me anyway. And it's really expensive in both Sumatra and Malaysia. So I just never bought any beer. But here, yesterday, I was in the Circle K sort of convenience store right next door to my hotel. And I went in there to buy some milk, as I often do. And I'm looking at the carton of milk, and right beside it was beer. And the beer was far cheaper than the milk. And I thought, I don't know, why not? Let's have a beer. So I bought a couple of cans of a cold beer, which was, as I said, kind of a new, fun experience for me, considering how long ago it was that I had a can of beer before. So I kind of enjoyed that. And that ties in with this idea that being here in Vietnam feels so different. So much of my time recently has been spent in either Malaysia or Sumatra. I've been bouncing back and forth between those two countries, or Sumatra, not a country, but Indonesia and Malaysia. And I got used to the environment there, and hitting Vietnam. And District 1 of Saigon in particular is such a different vibe. It's almost shocking to feel the difference in terms of the energy levels and just the style of the place. So it's been very interesting. I said I would never use the word interesting again, but it's such a useful word. If it hasn't been interesting, it's been fascinating. It's actually been fascinating the last couple of days here. Just the difference in atmosphere, the difference in tone, the difference in style, activity levels, the vibe, just the overall vibe is so different from Kuala Lumpur. It's been fascinating to be here. All right, I just saved that first file and everything seemed to work out okay. Audio was being recorded, and I guess it just takes time to get used to any new camera setup, any sort of gear you're using. So I assume I'll get used to this new way of recording a behind-the-scenes video with my GoPro Hero 12 sitting right there, right there in front of my face, and sitting on the bed. Now I have it propped up between my knees, so feels a little bit more sturdy. You figure out a way. As Goldblum says, life finds a way, and in my world, GoPro finds a way eventually. So going back to my story, quick recap. I was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, in case anyone is new joining me on this behind-the-scenes channel. I was in Kuala Lumpur for about 3 months. Well, I was in Malaysia for about 3 months, and then my visa was expiring, so I had to leave the country, and I just happened to have a flight booked to Ho Chi Minh City. And it was not a flight that I booked because I had big plans of going to Vietnam. At the time, I just needed to book a flight to show immigration. Sometimes when you go to a new country, immigration would like to see how you're leaving their country. And at that time, it made sense for me just to look for the cheapest flight possible out of KL. And that happened to be a short hop to Ho Chi Minh City on AirAsia. So I booked that flight not even 3 months ago. I booked it something like 4 months ago, thinking I just needed it for immigration, but I still had it on the books. It was already paid for. So I decided, yeah, why don't I come here? And as I've talked about before, I've been to Vietnam one other time, but it was decades ago, so long ago that coming here now really is a brand new experience. For me, it feels like going to a brand new country, someplace I've never been before. Though, to be honest, in my one day here so far, I spent the entire day just comparing the Vietnam I saw around me to the Vietnam I remember. and they have nothing to do with each other at all. It's incredible how much. I guess I would have been here back in the 90s. I can't remember the year. I have to reconstruct my life to remember when I came here, but it would have been sometime in the 90s, I guess. Early 90s. And the Vietnam from back then has got very little connection with the Vietnam that I've been experiencing since I arrived. So that has been the story of my visits so far. Basically, how modern the place has become. When I was here before, it was a very familiar sort of destination from that era when people were backpacking around Southeast Asia. The countries all had a similar vibe. I visited places like Thailand and Indonesia, Nepal, Vietnam, China, and again, they were all very rural countries, very agricultural. It was all about rice farming. There was very little in the way of travel infrastructure. The streets were full of bicycles, full of animals, full of people walking, carrying huge loads. Anything you think of any image that you conjure in your mind from that kind of a society, that's what Vietnam was like back then. And now it is just fully into not the 21st century. We're living in like the 24th century here. It seems like the roads are completely different. The traffic is different. It's all cars, fancy everything, fancy high-end luxury brands everywhere, giant luxury condominium towers, fancy restaurants, fancy coffee shops. Everything is completely different from my point of view. The people are completely different. The Vietnamese, I remember, maybe it was a factor of where I went back in those days. I remember spending a lot of time down by rivers, down by the ocean, a lot of fishing going on. Very typical traditional lifestyle that I see in a lot of countries. Village life, for example, animals, rice farming. And now it's just modern technological life. Brand new fancy taxis, everybody dressed luxuriously, hanging out in gorgeous, like I see these women everywhere inside these makeup and fashion places where they're getting massages and getting their hair done and getting their makeup done. Glamorous women walking around everywhere in beautiful outfits. Yeah, it's just a completely different world. And I knew that Vietnam had undergone an economic boom. I knew about that. I'm not immune to current events. But at the same time, I was not expecting such a large change. Not at all. Yeah. So, I was starting from Kuala Lumpur, and things got kind of weird right from the very beginning because I guess I didn't realize what I had done. I think normally for an international flight, you're supposed to get there 2 hours early. And what I would normally do in my normal life is get to the airport 3 hours early. So I would be on an airport bus 4 hours early. So I'm on the airport bus 4 hours before my flight. I get to the airport 3 hours before my flight. I go through customs and immigration right away. And then I have a solid 1.5 to even 2 hours in the airport before my flight leaves. I like to do things that way. I like to have lots of time. I like to move slowly, methodically, really relaxed, no time pressure at all. But in this case, a friend of mine offered to drive me to the airport, which is wonderful. Thank you, KY, for the lift to the airport. But again, right from the very beginning, I guess the way I structured my time, it just shifted in my brain. And I thought, well, international flight, I'm only going to Vietnam. I only need to be there 2 hours before the flight. So I arranged with KY to pick me up at 3 hours before my flight, 1 hour drive to the airport. It never occurred to me that, oh, by doing that, I've lost an hour. It just seemed so convenient to get a ride to the airport then I don't have to be as worried about the time, because if I'm going by bus, that's one of the reasons I would go 4 hours early, because you're going by bus, you don't know what's going to happen. The bus isn't running, you miss the bus breaks down, there could be something goes wrong. But now that I was getting a lift, I went, I don't need to rush as much. So KY and I worked out a time where he would pick me up, I guess, at 11. We were going to leave at 11, get there at 12, and then I would have 2 hours before my flight. But I kind of lost track of things, so I didn't realize what I had done. And then when we got to the airport, maybe it was 12:15 by the time we got there, I had a few formalities, unusual formalities I had to get through. It was extremely confusing because Vietnam is a little bit more serious about people leaving or entering and leaving. So you have to show your documents. If you fly to Indonesia, for example, you just do self-check-in. You show up, go to one of the little machines, you check in online, which I had done for Vietnam as well. You check in online, and then you just get your luggage tags from the little machine, drop off your bag, and then you go through immigration, and you're done. Vietnam is different. For whatever reason, they want to vet people coming to Vietnam. So when I booked the flight, and then when I checked in online, I got a big message that said, when you get to the airport, please go to a check-in counter to have your documents verified. You can't just go through immigration. You have to be verified. Basically, they have to check your passport, they have to check your visa, make sure you're good to go. And people were telling me that for Vietnam, they're very serious about you having a flight out of the country. So you have to make sure you have a confirmed flight out, that they're going to ask to see it before they will let you onto the plane. So I prepared that in advance as well. And then I got to the airport and I tried to follow the instructions. Go to an AirAsia check-in counter. And I figured, well, you go to the check-in counter and bring your luggage, and then you just check in with a human being. They will check you in, they will take your bag, they will check your documents. But they kept turning me away. It says, no, you can't do that, you can't do that, because you haven't paid for that. There's a fee for everything now, and they push you towards self-check-in, self-luggage drop-off, self-everything. But now I had the system telling me I had to go to a check-in counter, but then when I tried to go to the lineup to go to the check-in counter, they kept turning me away, saying, no, you can't use a check-in counter because you haven't paid the physical talk to a human being check-in fee. I'm like, well, yeah, but you guys have told me I have to go to a check-in counter. I went to one, they turned me away. I went to another one, and then I was getting really confused, and I wasn't really focused on what I was doing. Part of it was I was doing all of this with my friend KY. He was with me at the time. He was helping me out by holding the GoPro, sometimes pushing the luggage cart for me, and then I was chatting with him about what was going on. But just having him there distracted me from what I was doing, and I kept losing track of things. I wasn't my normal, focused, slow person that I normally am, and things just got more and more confusing. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to do next. And then we went up to another lineup to go to a check-in counter because I got turned away from one. They sent me to another one, so I went to this other one because I was at one, and then the one says, no, you have to go to here or behind. And I'm talking to her, says, oh, so I have to go behind here? She says, well, you have to go W or behind. And I was like, okay, you want me to go to what do you mean by behind? I can go to W or I can go to behind. What's behind W? She kept saying behind. And he says, well, behind is V. So, oh, why didn't you say that? I can either go to check-in counters W or check-in counters V. The behind kind of mixed me up. But I said, oh, okay, so I can go to W. I can go right there. She says, yeah, you can go there. So I go there, and there's another AirAsia employee there, and then she looks at me and says, no, you can't go in here. You haven't paid for your check-in fee. You have to check in at the machine. And I talked to her and I says, listen, you guys have told me I have to go to a check-in counter because you need to verify my documents. It said I can't do self-check-in. I have to go to a counter. And she said, well, let me see your boarding pass, whatever. So I had a photocopy of my boarding pass. I bring that out, and for whatever reason, the photocopy that I had didn't have the big message on it that said you must go to a check-in counter. So I'm showing her my check-in boarding pass document, and it didn't have that information on it. And then she said to me, well, what you have to do is just go to the check-in machine, do self-check-in at the machine, and then if it comes out and it says verified at the top, then you can go in. You don't have to go to the counter. I'm like, well, that's not what any of your documents told me online. So anyway, I go to the machine, and I'm all flustered by this point. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm sort of chatting with KY. I'm finding that really distracting. I'm not focused. I have no idea what's going on. I go up to one of these machines. I don't know what to do next. What am I doing at one of these machines now? What am I scanning? Do I put my passport here? I'm putting my passport on the screen. Nothing's happening. I get out my boarding pass. I'm scanning. And on the machine it says, you must hold your document 5 centimeters away from the scanner. And maybe I'm a dummy, but I don't know where the scanner is on any of these machines. It's a machine that's bristling with screens and things, and I don't know where the scanner is. Is it up here? Is it down there? Is it down below? Is it flat? Do I hold it here? And I'm holding things, and then KY, my friend, he keeps jumping in and distracting me, and he says, no, go here, do this, hold it here, go here, go here, go here. And I'm like, just let me do this, let me think this through. And I'm looking at this machine, nothing's happening. And then it finally dawns on me, well, I've already checked in. Why am I trying to check in again? Because I've already done online check-in. Of course the machine is not going to check me in because I don't need to. I've already checked in for my flight. I did that back a couple days ago in my hotel room, and that's why I already have a boarding pass. It finally clicked. Oh, come on, I'm already checked in. Why did she tell me to go check in? Anyway, once I figured that out, it was okay. I held something at one of the scanners, and of course it printed out luggage tags for me. Zoop! Now I got my luggage tag. And I'm thinking, well, okay, now I've got luggage tag and I could go drop off my luggage, but I still need to verify my documents. So I didn't dare drop off my bag until I verified my documents. So I went back to the woman. Turns out it was a different woman this time, and we go around in all these circles again about, oh, you can't come in here because you haven't paid for the check-in fee. And I'm talking to her again. It says, I'm going to Vietnam. I have to have my documents verified before I can get on the plane. You guys have been telling me that over and over online. So how do I verify my documents? And then she says, oh, you just go over there. And way off on the left, there was a counter that said, well, when I got close to it, I saw it had a sign on it that said, documents verification. And it's like, oh, for Pete's sake, that's what you're supposed to do. Nobody told me. So it's like, now it all finally makes sense. I've already checked in online. That's finished. So now when you get to the airport, you have to go to the special AirAsia documents verification counter. You don't go to counter X. You don't go to check-in counters Y. You don't go to luggage drop-off. You don't go to any of these places. You go to documents verification because that's where you verify your documents. But none of the staff told me that. None of the printouts told me that. They just told me to go to a AirAsia check-in counter. And that's what I was trying to do. And all the women kept telling me I can't do that, but I'm supposed to go to documents verification. And I guess they have one window, one lineup that does that. And if you're not aware of it and you don't go looking for it, it's not like you're just going to see it. because it's one lineup in the middle of this massive airport. But once I got there, it's like, okay. Got in line, got to the front, handed over my passport, and I handed over things one at a time because I like to understand how things work, and I wanted to know what are they going to ask for, because I had my flight, of course. I had my online check-in documents for my flight, my boarding pass, I had my passport, I had a confirmed hotel reservation printout, and I had my flight out of the country, and I had my visa document. I had a whole stack of documents. But I didn't know what was actually required. Friends of mine told me, oh yeah, they're going to check your hotel reservation, they're going to check your visa, they're going to check your passport, they're going to check your flight out of the country. All of this, you're going to need it. So I got all of it prepared. I made special trips in Kuala Lumpur to go out at night to go to photocopy shops with a flash drive with all my documents so that they could print everything out for me. And that was a whole huge adventure because for the first time in my life, touch and go wouldn't work. And where I went to get the photocopies, they only took cashless transactions. You couldn't pay with cash. So I went in there and they says, oh, you understand, sir, that this place is totally cashless. And I'm like, that's fine. I have touch and go, and they accept touch and go. But of course, because I was in a hurry, because I was doing all these very important things, now touch and go would not work. And I was stuck there for the longest time because they printed out all my photocopies and then I went to pay. You know, they scanned my touch and go code, wouldn't work. I scanned their code, wouldn't work, and I was there for longest time. I tried to give them money. It's like, listen, it's 7 ringgit. I've got 7 ringgit right here in cash. Let me give you this so I can go. I've got things to do. I've got a flight early. I've got a flight tomorrow to another country. I need to go. And they wouldn't let me go. It says, well, you haven't paid, sir. You have to pay. Don't you have a debit card from your bank? I'm like, I'm a tourist. I'm not allowed to open bank accounts in Malaysia. I don't have any of these things. I'm doing well having touch and go. And as far as I can tell, it's your touch and go that's failing. I just use touch and go at the grocery store. I use it at coffee shops. I use it everywhere all the time. There's nothing wrong with my touch and go. Your system is failing. I think this is a you problem. It's not a me problem. So I think I can just pay cash and go. But anyway, finally, a customer in line behind me, very kind man, stepped up and said, okay, you give me the money, I'll pay your bill. And this kind Malaysian man paid. Anyway, I'm just telling that story to indicate how much work I went through to even get all these documents. I had to download them from the computer as PDFs, save them to a flash drive, go out into KL, find a print shop, pay for the printing. I had all these documents because everybody told me I'm going to need all these printouts. You can't do it on your phone. You're going to need paper printouts. So I did all that. And then so when I went up to documents verification, I wanted to know for sure what really was required. And I handed the woman my passport and the visa, and my boarding pass, of course, because you have to start with your flight. And that's all I gave her. And she checked my visa for Vietnam, and that's all. Nothing else was required. No hotel reservation, no flight out of the country, nothing. Only the visa. And then she printed out a brand new paper boarding pass. And that often ends up happening too, where the promise of the modern world is all paperless. So you check in for your flight online, and then you have your boarding pass. You have everything on your phone. You don't need anything else. And then something always happens, some sort of a weird thing where document verification, and now when you actually do the document verification, they check you in a second time, and then they print out a paper boarding pass anyway. So I'm very excited and very proud of myself that I have an online boarding pass. I feel like I've joined the modern world. And then they end up giving me a paper boarding pass anyway. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to do it the modern way. Though I did have a chance to do something the modern way, because as part of the AirAsia check-in, procedure, I also had to sign up for their new Faces program. And I didn't really understand what it was, some sort of a automated processing system, security system, where instead of checking your documents to verify that you are you, they check your face. So you have to register with Faces. And then I guess I didn't know what any of this meant. This is all happening when I was doing my online check-in on my phone back in my hotel room. And then I had to take a selfie, right? It's one of these programs where you turn on the app that they give you, and then you have to take a selfie and frame it up, and you have to do it a few times in order for it to get a proper photograph of you. And then it records your face as part of your computer record, and then I guess you can just go through the airport with cameras scanning your face for security reasons. Anyway, they told me I had to do that, so I did it. But then they told me at the end that, okay, you have signed up for Faces, but it has not been activated yet. And I swear it said in the message, when you get to the airport, just go up to any AirAsia staff member that you see, and they will activate Faces for you. So while I was doing my documents verification thing, trying to check in, trying to get in line to have my documents verified, I did say to the people as well, oh, by the way, AirAsia told me I had to sign up for Faces. And they said, just go up to any AirAsia staff member and they will activate it for you. And they just kept saying, oh, no, we don't know anything about that. Just go away, sir. So I couldn't get any information about this Faces business either. And then after I got my boarding pass and I was good to go, I said goodbye to my friend KY. And then I went to the place where you start the process. You've got to go through the place where they weigh your bags, of course. They're very serious about that these days. And it turns out the reason the airlines are suddenly serious about weighing carry-on bags is because they've now given people the option of paying for extra weight for carry-on. They used to have a flat 7 kilograms, right? Everybody, you're limited 7 kilograms carry-on luggage. Of course, me being a rule-abiding fellow, I would always check in my big bag, and I always make sure that my carry-on bag is way below 7 kilograms. I just have a small day pack that has my laptop and my passport in it, basically, and my GoPro, of course. So it's way below 7 kilograms, but of course in the past, everybody else in the lineup has like 89 million kilograms of luggage that they're all carrying onto the plane and just stuffing it all into the overhead compartments because everybody's trying to avoid paying for a checked bag. And it makes such a hassle, makes boarding the plane so difficult because everybody brings so much luggage onto the plane, way above the 7 kilogram limit. And I guess more power to them. They're trying to get as much value out of the airline as they can. They're fighting to get more for less, but it causes such a problem. And now the airlines have, well, AirAsia at least, has put in this system where when you check in, normally you get 7 kilograms, but now you can pay an extra fee that will give you 15 kilograms. So now when you're going through the security gates, they weigh everybody's bags, and if your bag is more than 7 kilograms, well, now they have a rule on the books and they have a system in place where they can charge you a fee for the extra weight. So because they can make more money from it, now they're very serious about enforcing it. So everybody in front of me was having all their bags weighed, and now they're having to pay more and leave lineups, go do something else. But I just had a tiny day pack. They just let me go through. But as I'm going through that lineup, again, I spoke to this woman there, and I'm still worried about Faces. I spoke to her and said, I've got this Faces thing. I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to activate it. Do you know how I do that? How does that, can you activate it for me? And then she just sort of, just go that way, sir. And then after that, there was a gate, brand new style of gate that looked very modern, very fancy, And I guess this was the new faces procedure, where in the past, at this stage in getting on a jet, there's a human being standing there who asks to see your passport and your boarding pass. They open your passport, they look at the photo, look at you, make sure that the photo matches you, then they look at the boarding pass, make sure the name matches boarding pass to passport, look at you a couple of times, and there you are, sir, you can go. So that was the screening security process. And Faces replaces that. So now, instead of going through a gate with a human being standing there, now there's an automated gate that is closed, and there are cameras there. There's little feet on the ground, and you're supposed to put your feet on the painted feet, stand there looking goofy, and wait for the camera to scan your face. And if it matches, the gates open and let you through. So in the future, there will be no people there. It's all going to be automated. So that's all it is. I thought it was much fancier than that. I thought I could just sail through the airport and I wouldn't have to do anything. I could just walk around, and at every stage I just get scanned from cameras in all directions. But it was actually this specific point that is now part of the Faces program. And it turns out that because it's a new program, there was a man standing there in a black suit with an iPad, and he was the guy who activates your faces. So in fact, my instructions were just go up to any AirAsia personnel and they will activate it for you. So of course, me being a dummy, I'm going all over the airport. Please, miss, can you activate faces for me? Sir, can you? I'm doing what they told me to do. I'm going up to anybody and nobody knows what I'm talking about. But it turns out what you're supposed to do is just go through the process. And when you do get to the faces gate, there's a man standing there, and anyone doing it for the first time, he has to take your phone and your passport and your boarding pass, all of your documents, and he scans everything with his iPad, and he taps away, and then he activated faces for me. So once he activated everything for me, then I was able to put my feet on the little painted feet, stand in front of the gate, and of course it failed. I'm standing there and it goes, red lights flashing. We don't recognize your face, or your face is unacceptable to us. And then the guy told me, well, try a different one. So I had to move over to the other gate, put my feet on the little feet, and then it did register my face and let me through. So I guess the point of this story, part of it is just the story. This is what the modern world is like. Pretty complicated place. Every time you fly now, there's a new technological system has been put in place, and all of this has to be figured out and understood and activated, and sign-up procedures. And I guess eventually all of this will be old school and it will all operate smoothly. But the first time you do anything, yeah, you have to turn everything on and learn how it works. So it's not any faster, it's actually slower. So anyway, I go through all of that, and then I'm in the departure area. Up until that point, I was talking a lot about whether I was going to go to the good boarding gate or the bad one. And I couldn't remember the lettering scheme, but I did remember that for AirAsia, there's two departure gates, basically. Well, there's three of them, but one of them is a terrible one. Narrow hallway, crowded, very tense, and it's a horrible place to hang out. And the other two are in a wide open, spacious area. So I always want to go to the good departure gate, not the bad one. And I couldn't figure out which one I was going to. My flight was departing from gate 11, L11, or no, L13, and it turned out that L, that's the bad one. P and Q, those are the good ones. L is the bad one, and mine was L. And normally what I do, I've flown out of KL with AirAsia many times. If I am assigned to the bad one, since I'm there hours early, then I would just go to the good ones. It's far away to go to P and Q. It's quite a long walk, but they have moving sidewalks and everything. So I would, instead of going directly to L, I would go to P and Q, and then there I would go to a coffee shop, go to a restaurant, go to McDonald's, hang out there, relax, get everything organized, get everything sorted, and then when it was time to go to my flight, then I'd return to gate L and go to there. And that's what I'd normally do. So that's what I did this time. But what I kind of lost track of was I'd gotten to the airport 1 hour later than I normally do. The check-in procedure was far longer and took more time than it normally does. So I didn't have any time. I went to McDonald's, I went to PQ, I stood in line at McDonald's, I got a meal, and I'm sitting down to have this hamburger and French fries. And then I looked at my watch and went, holy crap, my flight is leaving like right now. It was like, oh man, I've lost, like my whole life was spinning out of control. I had no idea how late it was. So basically I just went, Rah! I ate as much of my burger and fries as I could, but I didn't even have enough time to eat all of it because I had to go and I had to make that long journey all the way back to L, which is a long journey. And then I still had to go through security because at the departure gate to get to L, for whatever reason, to go to P and Q, was there? I think at all of them, P, Q, and L, there is one more security. And it's actually the most severe security. You have to go through security before that. When you go through immigration, it's like a customs security. And this drives me crazy too, because at customs security, they have a big sign at the machine that says, you only have to scan your bags. Bags only. Bag scanning only. That's all we're doing here. Put your bag in, send your bag through. That's all you have to do. Bag only. But of course, human beings being human beings, we're all idiots. Nobody reads the sign except for me. So everyone in the lineup, they're removing all their metal. Their watches and their belts and their jewelry and their glasses and their microphones. Everybody's they're treating it like a full-on security scan. But you don't have to at that point. All they want you to do is take your day pack, your carry-on bag, pop it onto the conveyor belt, it goes through the machine. You do not have to remove all the metal from your body. It's not that kind of security scan. But it's never clear to anybody, so everybody there takes forever, stripping out all of their metal, treating it like a full security scan. And then they go through, takes forever, and you get out the other side. But when you get to your departure gate, that is the full security scan. And then you have to remove all of your metal, your belts, your chains, your jewelry, all that kind of stuff, your watches. And of course, nobody ever does. I don't know why people are so scattered, but, well, I was running very, very late, and I was quite scattered. So I can't really blame people. But when I go up to one of these security things, I prepare for it. I take off my watch. If I have coins in my pocket, I remove my coins, take off my reading glasses. Anything that might remotely be metal on me, I remove it, put it all into my day pack, send that through. So when I go through the metal detector, I'm very proud of myself. It's one of my few achievements in life, is that when I go through the security, the metal detector, it does not trigger. It has a nice, happy green light that says, you're okay. Every other person in the line that day got stopped. And everybody, and there was a big lineup of people with so much luggage. Oh man, this new system where you're allowed to take 89 kilograms worth of luggage onto the plane with you. Oh, I don't like this new system at all. because people bring all their luggage onto the plane now, and going through these security things is a jungle. It's a zoo. And all these people, this huge crowd of people, and every single person ahead of me that tried to go through the scanner went off, and then the security people have to stop them. Sir, 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 do you have a belt on? And the hopeless fool lifts up his shirt. Oh, would you look at that? I am wearing my belt with my metal belt buckle. Yes, sir, can you please go back? And they have to fight against the crowd of people. And meanwhile, of course, they're panicking because their luggage has gone through, and they want, it's all chaos. They go out, they remove their belt. Now they have to get one of those baskets to put their belt into the basket, and there's total chaos surrounding that as well. They put their belt through, they go through the machine, beep, beep, beep. Oh, sir, do you have a watch on? Oh, yes, I forgot to take my watch off. He's got to go back. Everybody had to go through 2 or 3 times before they got rid of all the metal. How hard is it to do? Get rid of the metal. People, listen to me. Before you go through the metal detector, remove the metal. It's not rocket science. So, total chaos. And now I'm in departure area L, which is a narrow hallway, very crowded, jammed with people. Though, to be honest, it was kind of quiet that day. So it wasn't as bad as it normally is. And then I made my own dumb mistake because I needed to go to the bathroom. I like to hit the bathroom before I get on the plane. I had a little bit of a bathroom emergency going on. I won't go into the details about that. But I went into a bathroom, and I'm timing things, like how much time have I got to deal with this? And then I got my times mixed up because the flight was leaving at 2:40, but it was landing at 3:50 in Vietnam. And somehow I got those numbers flipped. So in my brain, I thought my flight was leaving at 2:50. So I thought I had an extra 10 minutes to play around with. So when I was in the bathroom, I was scanning, so, okay, I got enough time to deal with this, and I wasn't really rushing. But it turns out I was 10 minutes off. Normally I'm down there an hour before the flight leaves, but I was so mixed up on this day. I was running really late. I was cutting it very close, but I still had time, I thought. But I had the numbers flipped. So then I'm finished in the bathroom. I'm walking, trying to get fast to my departure gate, and it is miles and miles away. And then, of course, because of the narrow hallway, people who are there on time and they're waiting for their flight, they've got plenty of time. Everybody is out for a leisurely stroll. All of these couples pulling their bags behind them, they're out there just killing time, waiting for their flight to leave, and they're just strolling up and down the departure gate, looking at things, just having a good time. And of course, there's 2 of them together, each of them with a rolling suitcase, and they're blocking the entire hallway. And I'm stuck behind them, and I gotta go fast, and I'm stuck behind all these people that are just meandering along, looking, and they stop, and they're looking, and it was so crazy. I'm like, oh, people, move out of the way. I gotta go. I'm gonna miss my flight. I'm getting close to the departure gate, and I hear the announcement, final call. Finally, it sounded frantic in the announcements. Final call, flight AK522 to Ho Chi Minh City, AirAsia. We're about to close the gate. Final call. You better come. You better go. And I'm stuck behind these people. I'm trying to do my O.J. Simpson run through the airport, leaping over luggage, but I couldn't because it was so crowded with these people, these meanderers. I get there, and I'm the only person there. I had no idea how late I was. I mean, I was late. For the first time in my life, I nearly missed a flight. I was there down to the second. It was so dumb on my part. And now, of course, I get there, and I figure they can just look at my boarding pass on the plane, sir. But no, you're going to Vietnam. Now this woman here, AirAsia staff, oh, could I see your visa, please? I'm like, again? I already did all this, but all right, okay. And I put everything away. I had taken all of my documents, all of my paperwork, put it into my knapsack in my special documents compartment. I put a little padlock on the zipper on my knapsack because I thought I'd be putting it in the overhead compartment. I always put a little padlock, so my knapsack was locked. And now this woman was saying, I need to see your visa. So, oh, okay. So I step to the side, and I've got to get out my little key, and I've got to open up the padlock, pull out my documents folder, pull out the visa. I give it to her, and she checks it carefully. Meanwhile, the announcements are like, final call, we're closing the door, we're leaving. If you're not on here in 2 seconds, we're leaving you behind. And this woman is looking at my visa, looking at my passport, line by line comparison. Just next line. Then my name. Your name has to be spelled exactly right. Has to match her. If one letter is off, you're not getting on that plane. So she's doing letter by letter comparison. Visa date, comparing everything. Just line by line by line. She finishes, and then a Vietnamese man I assume he's Vietnamese because he was in a Vietnamese military uniform. He steps up. Let me see that. He takes my passport, he takes my visa, takes my boarding pass, and he does the whole thing all over again. But he is much more thorough than the woman was. And he doesn't care whether I get on that plane at all. He's not part of AirAsia. He's got nothing to do with anything. His job is security. So he's going to do his job. Nothing else matters to him. So he's looking at my documents. And man, I thought he was going to get out a bomb-sniffing dog to smell everything, and he was looking at everything. I thought he was going to get out a magnifying glass. He went over this document like it was a dangerous piece of paper, and he checked everything so carefully. Took so long. And by this point, I'm starting to realize just how late I am, and I think I'm going to miss this plane. They're going to close the door on me any second now. And then he finally gives it back to me. I put everything away, and then I'm practically running down the bridge to get there. And the woman, the AirAsia staff member who had gone over my visa, while the Vietnamese security man was doing it, she was standing beside me, practically jumping up and down in a panic because she had to be on that plane as well. And I was the last person getting on the plane. And she's like, come on, let's go. Side note, if it seems like the video is jumping from scene to scene here quite a bit, it's because my brand new GoPro Hero 12 keeps overheating and shutting down, which is a new thing. So I guess something like the Hero 12, new version of the GoPro, more powerful than the Hero 9, more powerful everything. It also produces more heat. So even though I'm inside an air-conditioned hotel room, I've never ever had a problem with the Hero 9, but the Hero 12 has been overheating a lot. But I think I've solved that problem because up until now I've had the GoPro inside a GoPro Media Mod, which is a case wraps all the way around the whole GoPro, and that seals in a lot of the heat. But I've removed the Media Mod, and I'm now using the GoPro mic adapter, which luckily I also have. And then the mic adapter, I can use it to plug in my Rode Wireless Go microphone. And it does not require a case. I just plug it into the USB-C port. So now my GoPro is nicely exposed to the air, and it shouldn't build up as much heat as before. But yeah, even yesterday and the day before, using the Hero 12 to record my trip from KL to here, and then yesterday I was out exploring Saigon. The Hero 12 overheated and shut down all the time. So that is, as much as I've been praising the Hero 12 for so many reasons, when you combine it with a media mod, there is definitely an overheating problem. I tried shooting in 4K, and 4K, no way. It produces way too much heat. So even if your laptop can handle editing 4K video, the GoPro can't record 4K. It's just going to overheat and shut down. So I went back to a 1080p. But even yesterday, shooting all day in 1080p, it still overheated and shut down quite a few times. So a little bit of a problem there with the Hero 12 combined with a media mod. So I may end up having to go back to my Ulanzi cage and the mic adapter, because I think that dissipates heat better than the media mod does. Yeah, wasn't expecting that. Honestly, was not expecting that at all. So anyway, we'll get that figured out eventually. So there I am, late for my plane, and then the Vietnamese military dude, he finished with his inspection. I was free to go, and then I'm going down the bridge to the plane, and the AirAsia staff member is behind me and just urging me to go, 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 go. So I'm now like running down there, and she's running behind me. And then we get on the plane, and just as I step on, boom, the door shuts behind me. Right? I was like, I could not believe I lost track of time to that extent. Again, for the first time in my life. But yeah, that was quite the adventure. So I'm on the plane, and then I feel really bad for the people who are my seatmates, because I booked a window seat, and these people, they know the plane is about to take off, and they're probably thinking, hey, score, whoever booked this seat didn't make it, so now we have all this extra room. And then I get on the plane at the last second, and I come trundling down the aisle, and they're looking up, going, "Oh no, he made it!" And so, as I always do, I apologize all the time for everything. And I showed up, and there's a couple sitting there in the aisle in the middle seat, and I looked at them and said, "I'm very, very sorry, but that's my seat over there by the window," and they had to get up and get out of their seats, and I moved into mine. But I don't think they minded, to be honest. The guy, my seatmate, was a very, very nice young man from Vietnam. He spoke English. He was a professional and an architect, as it turns out, and he was coming back from his honeymoon. So the woman with him was his new wife, his new bride, and they were returning from a honeymoon to Malaysia and Singapore, and he was going back to his home in Saigon. So, and because he spoke English, I managed to chat with him quite a bit through the flight. We connected on WhatsApp. So, and his office is probably in this neighborhood somewhere, so I'm hoping to get together with him for coffee or something at some point. And then after that, after all of that adventure, things went quite smoothly. I don't think I have quite as much of a story to tell, because the flight went by wonderfully. 2-hour flight. I had a meal, I had a cup of coffee, looking out the window, shooting video. We went out, we left Malaysia, went out over the Gulf of Thailand, and then entered the land of Vietnam, dropped down into Ho Chi Minh City. The funny thing is, I was just talking about the GoPro. I was filming our arrival, so as we were flying over the city, Ho Chi Minh City, it was a beautiful view, nice sunny day, and the buildings were fascinating. I was taking video, and we were just coming in for a landing. I was going to take video of the wheels as we touched down on the tarmac, and right at that second, the GoPro overheated and shut down. So then I quickly got out my phone, and I started my phone. I tried to shoot some video of the landing sequence, but yeah, the GoPro let me down again. But yeah, the flight was very pleasant, fast, and a theme of my arrival so far, I've already mentioned, is my mental image of Vietnam is from a very distant, more traditional agricultural past, pre-economic boom. So Vietnam today, post-economic boom, is a completely different place from the Vietnam I remember. So it's a brand new experience. That's part of the theme. The other theme is a bit more unusual in that people who know about Vietnam, people who have been coming here recently, have been giving me a lot of warnings. that, oh, the airport is going to be chaos. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crowded. It's going to be confusing. It's going to be nuts. Brace yourself. And when you get to Ho Chi Minh City, oh, it's just overwhelming, the traffic and crossing the streets and this and that. Everybody's been telling me about all these things are going to be so difficult and so crazy and so chaotic and so energetic. And so far, for me, it has been the exact opposite. Maybe the people giving me all these warnings have just had different experiences in their life. I guess I'm accustomed to places like Sumatra. I've been to Bangladesh. In my lifetime, I've been to Vietnam when it was a crazy, chaotic place that was difficult to figure out. But that world doesn't exist anymore, I guess. But maybe the people who come here now, they're not accustomed to that sort of atmosphere. I've been to places in South America and to Africa where you talk about chaos, total chaos. So when I landed at the airport in Ho Chi Minh City, I was anticipating nutty atmosphere. But it was a big, beautiful, modern airport. Everything was in perfect condition, nice bathrooms, big, wide hallways. Follow the signs, go to the immigration area, which is like a vast area with beautifully organized. There were 15 counters open, 15 of them. So 15 immigration officers processing people, 15 different lineups. Where I was, there were maybe 10 people ahead of me in line at the most, and they just sailed on through. It was over in no time. I went up to the counter, and I was expecting the Vietnamese immigration officer to really be hardcore. Now I was expecting things to get serious. He's going to want to know everything. He's going to want to know where I'm staying. What is your hotel reservation? Let me see. Let me phone the hotel. Do you have 3 friends to vouch for you? I need references. I need to see your university transcript. I need to see your visa paper. I need to see your boarding. I need to see all your documents. And it's going to take me an hour to process you. I was expecting the worst because people had told me to expect the worst. This guy didn't even want any documents. I had all my documents ready, and he said, I don't need any of that. Took my passport. He did ask for my boarding pass, which is kind of odd. Some countries, they want to see it, others they don't. But he took my passport, and he was doing a bunch of things, and then he looked at me and says, oh, boarding pass? So I gave him my boarding pass, and then he said, here you go, sir. Welcome to Vietnam. Stamped me in. He gave me the full 90 days. It had the stamp said valid, or this person is permitted to stay in Vietnam until, I think, July 30th, which is like 90 days from when I arrived. Nothing at all. Fast, easy, efficient, boom. So then I'm thinking, okay, now the chaos is going to begin. The luggage carousels, oh, it's going to be nuts. Nothing at all. Just normal, big, wide open area with all kinds of luggage belts, big sign, digital display. You look up the name of your flight. My bags were at belt 7. I go over to belt 7. My bag was there already. I didn't realize my bag was already there for a while, but I eventually figured that out. My bag was already there. I just grabbed it, walked out of the airport, and I thought, oh man, now it's going to get serious. Whoo boy, now I'm in Vietnam. Things are going to get nuts. I step out into the arrival hall. Perfectly fine. Nothing crazy going on. There were desks everywhere. If you wanted transportation into the city, some sort of a private taxi, hotel reservations, tours, whatever you want, there were counters everywhere with lovely young women just saying, sir, do you need a taxi? Do you need this? We can get it for you. SIM card, sir? Do you need a SIM card? We can help you out with that. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. I'm okay. A Planet Doug subscriber had booked a SIM card for me, and I had all these instructions on my phone about exactly where to go. Come out into arrival hall 1, turn left, go to the end, and Vinaphone will be right there. And now I thought, oh man, this is going to be nuts. Oh, this is going to be complicated. But I go up to the Vinaphone desk, and the woman said in English, oh, could I see your document, please. I had a piece of paper with a QR code for my SIM card. I handed her the piece of paper. She scanned the QR code. Oh, here you are, sir. Here's your SIM card. Just put it in your phone. So, oh, okay. And I just opened up my phone, put in the SIM card, closed it. It was activated. It was ready to go. She looked at me when I was done and said, is it working? She said, yeah, everything's fine. Thank you very much, sir, for using Vinaphone. I thought, well, that was easy. Who knew going to Vietnam was so easy? And I thought, okay, now things are going to get nuts. Now I'm leaving the airport in Vietnam, man, it's going to be crazy. How do I get out of the airport? Everyone was telling me, oh, you better take a taxi, you better get a Grab, and don't get a Grab at the airport because it's going to be nuts. You should leave the airport, walk down to this street, get a Grab. Boy, you do not want to get a bus. Whew. I'm thinking, I don't know, let's see what's going on. I step out of the arrival hall, and I knew from some research that I did that the buses, bus 109 and bus 152, they stop outside of what they called gate 12. So I looked up and I was like right in front of gate 8. Oh, gate 8, gate 9, 10. Oh, there's 12. Then I walked over to 12 and there were the buses. On my way there, a couple of people stopped me and said, sir, would you like a taxi? And I said, no, I'm going to take one of the buses. And one guy stuck with me for a little while. He said, well, I think a taxi would be so much better for you, sir. It's not that expensive. We have it right here. And I said to him, I kind of want to take a bus. I want the bus adventure. And he finally said, okay, that's all right, that's all right. And then he went away. And then there was bus 109 waiting for me. And there was bus 152 sitting there waiting. No crowds, no touts, no chaos, no confusion. And I looked on Google Maps, bus 109, yeah, it goes right to my hotel. Bus 152, yeah, it goes right to my hotel. And I looked at the two of them and I thought, I don't know, they both look fine. But for whatever reason, I got a better vibe from 152. So I went up to 152, I got on, put my backpack on the floor at the front of the bus, took a seat. A guy came up to me with a ticket thing, and we had a little bit of a communication problem there about how much to pay. I just gave him some money thinking I'll just get change back, and he handed it back to me like, oh, that's way too much. I don't have change for that. I guess he saw something in my wallet that was more appropriate, and he kept pointing at my wallet. I said, no, that one right there. So I pulled out another bill, it was 10,000 dong, and it's like, this one? He says, yeah, that one's good enough. So I gave him 10,000 dong, and then he gave me a ticket and 5,000 dong in change. So it was very inexpensive. 5,000 dong is 20 cents US. And he gave me the ticket, comfortable bus. And then within, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes of me getting on the bus, it just left. We were on our way. And then I called up Google Maps and I could track our direction. And I'm looking out the window, and of course the whole time I'm thinking, wow, Vietnam is a modern 21st century society now. I didn't recognize anything around me from my previous visit to Vietnam. As I said, I'm looking out the window of the bus, and all I see is traffic. Beautiful brand new cars everywhere, beautiful brand new buses everywhere, motorcycles. My memory of Vietnam was just bicycles, nothing but bicycles, bullocks, rice fields, fishing villages. That was my memory of Vietnam. Old rickety trains, broken down buses that are just banging and crashing, full of chickens and goats. Your typical backpacking experience back from the 80s and the 90s and the 70s before that, I guess. But it was nothing like that at all. This was a hyper-modern city. I'm looking out the window, car dealerships, fancy luxury brands everywhere, huge skyscrapers, fancy restaurants. It was really crazy. But anyway, I just sat on the bus and enjoyed the trip. And then I saw when we got near my hotel, I pushed the button, bing! I'd like to get off the bus, please. The bus pulled over. I grabbed my backpack and I stepped out onto the sidewalk, and I'm thinking, Like, when is this insane chaos of Vietnam going to begin? This has been one of the easiest trips I've ever gone on in my life. And then I'm looking at Google Maps. Oh, my hotel is right around the corner. So a little bit of a busy area, some busy streets there, some traffic. This was the heart of District 1, which is the tourism area. So I saw a lot of Westerners, a lot of backpackers just like me. Very familiar territory. Every second business I went by it catered to foreigners, to foreign visitors, either restaurants, coffee shops, tourism package places where they can rent you a motorcycle, a package tour, whatever it is you needed to do, get a SIM card. Services for foreign tourists basically everywhere. And I walked down the street, got to Adenia Hotel. There's a little bit of confusion about the hotel because it has different names, as it turns out. It's got Adenia, but it's also Island or Iden Hotel. It seems to have changed its name a few times, but that's no big deal. I eventually just went up to the desk in the doorway, and the guy was standing there. He spoke a little bit of English, and I said, in English, I have a reservation, and I handed him my passport. He looked on the computer. Oh, here you are, sir. Handed me a key. I'm like, that's it? I'm done? Yeah. There's the elevator, sir. 5th floor. You're okay. And I'm like, how is this so easy? Even compared to Malaysia, because in Malaysia we have the tourism tax. You have to talk about that for 20 minutes, and you have to connect with WhatsApp with the hotel clerk because you've got to get receipts for your tourism tax and send him receipts, and you get all of that chaos and confusion, and you've got to sign in, and you've got to check in, and you've got to leave deposits, and you've got to sign for the deposit, and on and on and on. Here in Vietnam, it was like, oh, passport, sir? Oh, yeah. Oh, welcome, Douglas. Here's your key. I'm like, what? Okay. I go in the elevator, I come up to this room, and I check in. It's just so different from my expectations and so different from what people were telling me to expect. And I thought, wow, okay, that was other than the mistakes I made going to the airport in Malaysia, that was the smoothest journey I've ever gone on in my life. And then yesterday as well, I spent the day with someone that I met here through my YouTube channel, Rod, a fellow Canadian. I met up with him for lunch at around 11 a.m. And then we spent the whole day together. We had lunch at this amazing restaurant. And then he knew about this local shuttle bus, a free shuttle bus that goes between residence buildings. And he stays in one of these residence buildings. So we just hopped on this shuttle bus and we went for a tour, almost like a 60-kilometer tour of the outer districts of Ho Chi Minh City. Amazing to just sit there and look at the city going by. Went all the way around in this big loop. And then we had a cup of Vietnamese coffee sitting on little plastic stools at the side of the road. And then after he left, I went walking around a little bit more. I got a banh mi sandwich. And I guess because I'm in District 1, the language barrier hasn't really had an effect because the local people here don't speak English for the most part, but they deal with tourists all day, every day. So they know the important things. So I found this little place, a little thing where they sell banh mi. I really wanted to have a banh mi at the end of the day, the Vietnamese sandwich. And the woman was there, and she looked at me, oh, dumb foreigner, but she was very friendly, very nice, and she looked at me, and I said, I'd like banh mi. They had a whole bunch of options, but I didn't know which one to pick. I just picked the first one. I guess it was the basic banh mi. Could I have banh mi thit? Is that how you pronounce it? And she says, oh, yeah, no problem. And she just went off and made it. They had a little plastic stool and a table there. I sat down. She brought me my sandwich, amazing sandwich. And I asked her in English, how much is it? And she said in English, 25,000. Oh, okay. I got out 25,000 dong, paid her. It's about $1 US for this amazing sandwich. Really good price for that. And then I enjoyed the sandwich while watching the world go by around me. And all throughout this day, I did a lot of walking. I met up with Rod, my new Canadian friend, at a restaurant that was about 2 kilometers away. And I just walked there. So I decided to walk to meet him. And again, I was anticipating massive crowds, intersections that were impossible to cross, endless traffic where you risk your life crossing the road. I was expecting all these difficulties. And then as I'm walking along, taking video, I reflected, man, this is so easy. Much easier even than Kuala Lumpur, because here in Ho Chi Minh City, I've talked about this a lot, there's something odd about KL. As a city, it evolved with no regard for pedestrians. It's a city that evolved for drivers. And you have a lot of difficulty walking anywhere in Kuala Lumpur. And not just because the sidewalks are a jumble. If there are sidewalks, of course, they're going to be full of scooters and things. You got a lot of barriers you have to navigate. But in KL in general, if you try to walk 2 kilometers, you often run into highway systems, rivers that you just cannot get across as a pedestrian. There's no way to get across these highway systems. It's very complicated. But Ho Chi Minh City seems to have evolved like what I think of as a normal city. And even though I walked 2 kilometers to get to this restaurant, at no point did I run into any difficulties at all. There were big, wide sidewalks everywhere I went. Every single street had the road for cars, the sidewalk for pedestrians, a big, wide sidewalk, a normal city. So that was fine. And every time I got to an intersection, there was a working traffic light. All I had to do was stand there, wait for a green light, and then there was a pedestrian crossing at every intersection with a little green man. And as soon as it turned green and said, you can walk, all the traffic coming from the side stopped because they had a red light. And people were telling me, oh man, the drivers here are crazy. They don't obey any of the traffic laws. They're going to hit you. You got to really be careful with crossing the street. And I don't know. Everybody stopped at the red light. And I got a green light with a green pedestrian walk signal. So I just walked across. And the next intersection, I waited till I got a green light and I walked. It was that way the entire time. The GoPro overheated again. I guess it wasn't really that bad. That was 24 minutes of me babbling. So the GoPro was running 24 minutes nonstop. And then it finally overheated. And I decided to change the battery at the same time. And when I took the battery out, it was red hot. So a lot of the heat is coming from the battery, which makes me wonder whether, I don't know if it's possible or not. Maybe with a GoPro, you can do pass-through power. I think you can. And that would probably eliminate the overheating problem where you just don't even have a battery in the GoPro. You just plug in a USB-C cable and then run the GoPro while you're doing this sort of studio style recording. Just do it with, plug it to an adapter basically without a battery, and I bet that would fix the problem completely. I'll try that next time. And I keep moving the GoPro closer and closer because every time I review the video, it looks a little bit distorted to me, like I have this giant body with a tiny little head sitting on top, because of the wide angle of the view. It seems distorted, but it seems like if I get it closer and closer to me, looking at the image on my phone, oh, it's frozen. So the preview is frozen on my phone. I can't see anything, but I think even on the GoPro, I can see it on the screen. My head looks tiny on top of this giant body. I don't know what's going on. I guess because the camera is so close to me, it just gives that wide angle distortion. Oh, you're right, you can see my hands. Yeah, I don't know how to fix that problem. Because the Hero 12, it doesn't have narrow lens anymore. With my old GoPro, I would fix that by putting it on the narrowest field of view, which has less distortion, but the Hero 12 doesn't have that anymore. Who knows? Maybe I'll use my Hero 9 for these behind-the-scenes videos instead of the 12. Maybe the 12 is a little bit too super powered, too high powered for this kind of video. So where was I? Yeah, I was walking through the streets of Vietnam to meet up with Rod for lunch, and it was a very easy walk. I had a lot of encounters along the way, very interesting ones. There were a lot of people that wanted me to hop on their Grab. Like a motorcycle Grab driver would pull up beside me, see me walking, and like, dude, it's too hot to walk. Why don't you hop on my motorcycle? I'll take you where you want to go. And I had to explain a couple of times to these people that, yeah, I like walking. I really prefer to walk everywhere I go. So no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. And I am in the tourism district, so of course you're going to get offers for a lot of services here. And yeah, one woman came up to me. I didn't quite understand what she was talking about. A young woman. I thought maybe it was some sort of a school assignment where she had to talk to a foreigner in English, but she eventually worked her way around. She was trying to raise money for some kind of a charity. She had a big bag of things she was trying to sell. And I said, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. And then one man, an older man, pulled up beside me again on a motorcycle. And I assumed he was trying to sell me something or offer me something. But he pulled right up in front of me and he stopped and said, hello, sir. Where are you from? And what's your name? And how long have you been in Vietnam? And where are you going to go? What are your plans? And I kept waiting for him to suddenly hit me with what he's trying to sell me. But we just had a very pleasant conversation about just chatting about small talk, passing the time of day. And then he stopped and he says, well, thank you very much for talking to me, sir. It was a pleasure to meet you. And he started up his scooter and then he drove away again. And that reminded me of my first visit to Vietnam decades ago, because I had those conversations all the time. And it seemed to be connected to, it was sort of a holdover still from the Vietnam War, where all the men of South Vietnam who spoke English really well and had a lot of dealings with the American soldiers or just Westerners in general. When I came to Vietnam decades ago, all of these men seemed to want to practice their English and just wanted to talk to a foreigner in English. So I had all of these very casual conversations with men all the time. And this man yesterday on the scooter, he seemed to fall into that category. And that was, yeah, that was quite interesting. Lunch was amazing. Beautiful restaurant up on the second floor. And I had a bowl of roast pork noodles, and had the owner of the restaurant told us all kinds of things about the food. And a few memories of Vietnam started to come back, because I remembered that if you would order an entree, like a bowl of noodles, that's just the centerpiece of the meal. And you may not have ordered other things, but you'll get the bowl of noodles, but then you get all these side dishes as well, the sauces and things that you can add. And you get a lot of little things in addition to that meal. And there's a lot of greenery involved, green leafy things. So my bowl of noodles, for example, had the meat on top, some veggies, all the noodles. But then when you dig down underneath, it's all sitting on top of a bed of leafy greens, a whole bunch of different types, lettuce and mint leaves and all kinds of different green leafy things. And I remember that being a very standard part of a Vietnamese meal. And being brand new in the country and having just come from Malaysia, I was very attuned to differences. And one of the differences I noticed had to do with a certain style. I don't know how to put this exactly, but the restaurant that we went to was beautiful, beautiful interior, and it seemed quite spacious and artistic. I think part of it comes from the building, because the building, I think, was a bit older, had a lot of interesting alcoves, spaces. The room was not just one big empty room, but it was divided up into sections with pillars and sections of wall dividing it. And here and there against the wall, there was nice furniture with beautiful art pieces and plants everywhere. And then I went into the bathroom at the end, and the bathroom was like a palace, filled with plants, filled with furniture, beautifully decorated. I took a picture of myself crouching down. There's a mirror down there at floor level. The bathroom was just so nice. And as we were leaving the restaurant, there was another gorgeous alcove with a rounded archway with some artistic pieces on the inside. And I was just taking pictures of everything inside the restaurant. It just had a certain vibe, a certain atmosphere, an artistic flair that struck me as particularly Vietnamese. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know what other word to use. And then after that lunch, as I said, Rod and I went for this shuttle bus tour, traveled something like 60 kilometers in total. Very interesting. And again, my overall impression was of a very modern city, very technological city, very advanced city. Even the bus we were on, I'm looking at where the bus driver was sitting, and it looked like he was piloting a space shuttle. And again, I don't have any memories of that sort of life in Vietnam from my previous visit decades ago. And we passed by skyscrapers everywhere, huge towers, luxury brands everywhere. Yeah, completely different world from what I remember. Very interesting. And then we came back and had a cup of coffee at the side of the road. Then I had my banh mi. And this whole area around District 1 was waking up for nighttime activity. And I didn't go out to sample any of it because I was so tired by the end of the day. And then last night I went to bed pretty early. And then again, I woke up this morning at 4:30 in the morning. And I felt rested enough to get out of bed and record this video. I was only going to record a very short behind-the-scenes video. I had no intention to talk this long. But hey, if I had the energy to tell the story, why not do it? So yeah, that's it. And today I think I'm going to go to the War Remnants Museum. I figure why not? I went to the War Remnants Museum the last time I was in Vietnam. As I told Rod before, when I was in Vietnam back in the 90s, it sort of felt like the Vietnam War had just ended. Everybody was still talking about it. Everybody was still thinking about it. And as I went around the city, there were billboards everywhere showing sort of classic socialist government propaganda. So everywhere I went were giant billboards, all referring to the workers and the struggle, and pictures of Ho Chi Minh and the hammer and the sickle. That's all you saw everywhere were these propaganda billboards for the government at that time. And now when you walk around, there are billboards everywhere, but they're just trying to sell you Gucci and whatever fancy watches and cars and motorcycles, all the fancy consumer products of the modern day. And all of that socialist propaganda material is just gone. You don't see it on the streets anymore. And I passed by one shop where they were selling posters. You could actually buy posters of these old propaganda posters. And then, so it doesn't exist in real life anymore. And when I walked back to my hotel from where the shuttle bus dropped us off, again, it was just block after block after block of amazing bars, restaurants, cafes, massage places, makeover places for women with their makeup and their hair, luxury fashion, handbags, all of that. So it's a world of luxury consumerism. That's how the city struck me my first day yesterday. And that's kind of where my day ended. And I was talking with Rod a little bit too about how the world is so different, even from a backpacker point of view, because we were talking about traveling around Vietnam, where to go. And again, from what I've seen online, when people travel, like backpackers travel in Vietnam, it's almost like luxury travel now. Everything is so organized, where if you go from here to any of the coastal cities, you want to go to Hue or Da Nang, Nha Trang, traveling from Saigon to Hanoi, basically, people are taking these beautiful luxury buses where everybody gets their own private sleeping cabin on the bus. And of course, back in the days when I was here before, none of that existed. All I remember are old rickety trains. I think I traveled by train most of the time. Broken down old trains. There's no air conditioning, hard wooden benches, things like that. And then the buses were your typical buses from that era, just rattly old things banging and crashing along, lots of flat tires, jammed. You're sitting on a hard wooden seat for hours and hours, flat tires along the way, rickety bridges to get across all of these rivers. Then you think the bridge is going to collapse, and all of that is gone. Everything here is just big, modern highway systems filled with traffic and modern buses. It's a completely different world to what I remember from before. So, but anyway, back in those days, I guess I went off on that tangent because back in those days, I did go to the War Remnants Museum, and I remember it. I remember my impressions because it's basically from the point of view of the Vietnamese. And of course, growing up in Canada with American Vietnam War movies, you think of the Vietnam War as an American war. But of course, when you're in Vietnam, for the Vietnamese people, it was just another war with foreign colonizers because they fought these wars for centuries, if not for millennia. The Vietnamese people, the people that have been living in this part of the world, have been fighting invaders for as long as they've been here, fighting with the Chinese, with the Khmer, with the Champa, with the French. 2 wars with the French, I think, and then now a war with the Americans. So to them, of course, it's not the American Vietnam War. It's, I think they call it the Second Indochina War, or the Second French Indochina War, something like that. But it's a very different war from their point of view. And of course, when you go to the War Remnants Museum, there is a lot of propaganda there from the war, in which, of course, in all wars, each side depicts the other side as being cruel and savage. And I have this memory of a lot of displays and a lot of propaganda posters about the evil Americans and the massacres and the torturing of children, all the horrible things that the Americans were supposed to have done during the war here. But it was interesting to see it from the Vietnamese point of view, where they were fighting yet another enemy. It was not anything new to them. And then all of the leftover weaponry. That was the main thing I got from the War Remnants Museum. You just got to see all of the helicopters and the fighter jets and the bombs, everything that was used at that time. And back in those days, I was into photography, of course. Nobody shot video back then, and I took tons of pictures from the War Remnants Museum of all the hardware, the helicopters and the jet fighters and the bombs, things like the landmines, the guns, the mortars, things like that. So I think I'm going to go there again today. That will be my big event for today. But I'll probably go out for breakfast first, go out for coffee, go to the War Remnants Museum, end the day with another local meal, and that will be a day hanging out in my neighborhood. And we'll see how that works. I may have worn out my voice already before the day has begun, maybe even worn out my GoPro, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to shut down for now, get ready for the day, think about where I'm going to go for my breakfast and coffee. Normally I don't have breakfast, but I think because I'm in Vietnam and there are things like pho. I have trouble always saying pho because it's P-H-O. The noodles, I think, is a very common breakfast dish here in Vietnam. I always want to say pho, but I think or po or something, but I think it's just called pho, something like that. I'm not feeling very optimistic about learning Vietnamese. I have been doing Vietnamese lessons on a podcast, but now that I'm here, and I hear people speaking Vietnamese, real Vietnamese around me, There's no prayer of me learning Vietnamese. It might be interesting to study, to learn a little bit about it, but when I hear people speaking Vietnamese, it's just sound. I have no confidence that I can learn even the numbers, even simple greetings. It's just a different sound to my brain. My brain can't even begin to process what I'm hearing. But of course, we have Google Translate, and a lot of local people will speak enough English. I may end up just trying to learn a bit of Vietnamese more out of interest, but I doubt it will ever be useful in my day-to-day life. In a place like Sumatra, in a very short time, you can actually learn enough Bahasa Indonesia to go into a store and ask people about prices, how much it costs, and things like that. You can actually use the language in day-to-day life, even simple Indonesian. But I get the impression that here in Vietnamese, even simple Vietnamese is going to be completely beyond me, and I doubt I'll ever be able to use it, even to ask how much things cost. I'm going to be reduced to Google Translate, sign language, and typing out the price on calculators. I don't think I'll be able to learn any Vietnamese at all, but we'll see how that goes. So that's it, shutting down. I'm probably going to do an experiment right now with my GoPro to find out whether I can run it from the media mod by using pass-through USB power, not using a battery. That would be very handy. So we'll see how that goes. So that's it, shutting down. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of that story, and I'll see you in the next video.